Okay, we now move on to old business, adoption of the 2011 tax levy, and your motion would be the whole thing on the front page. So do I have a motion for this?
Just read that whole page.
Yeah, I think so.
Whereas the Board of Education of Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, has heretofore adopted a budget resolution for said district for fiscal year commencing July 1, 2011, and ending June 30, 2012, and whereas it is necessary for this Board of Education to ascertain how much money must be raised by a special tax for the fiscal year for educational purposes, for operations and maintenance purposes, for transportation purposes, for municipal retirement purposes, social security purposes, for tort immunity purposes, for special education purposes, and file a certificate of tax levy as to such amounts with the county clerk of Cook County, Illinois. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois as follows. Section 1, that there be and there is hereby levied on the equalized assessed value of the taxable property of said district for the year 2011 a special tax of $15,267,861 and no cents for education purposes, a special tax of $1,950,000 and no cents for operations and maintenance purposes, a special tax of $260,000 and no cents for transportation purposes, a special tax of $250,000 and no cents for IMRF, a special tax of $250,000 and no cents for Social Security purposes, a special tax of $0 for tort immunity purposes, a special tax of $0 for working cash, and a special tax of $140,000 and 0 cents for special education purposes. Section 2, that the President and Secretary of this Board of Education be and they are hereby authorized and directed to forthwith execute and file with the County Clerk of Cook County, Illinois, a certificate of tax levy for the year 2011, providing for levy of the amounts aforesaid.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim Walsh. Any discussion?
I have a question that I asked. So maybe the tax levy certification has several funds that show zero, but our resolution only mentions one fund, the tort immunity fund, or no, excuse me, and the working cash it shows zero. Should they match? Why are we saying we're levying zero on 2 funds, but we're putting the form with like 6 funds where we're levying zero?
Yeah, I don't really know if the resolution has to identify that it's $0 for tort and working cash. I think it's just in there because it's from prior years.
Okay. The other thing is the resolution that was, the certificate that was passed out, there was a typo. It should have said was where it says as. We're going to fix that.
Where was this at?
On right there, where it says on the 3rd line, officer, I certified the levy ordinance, a copy which is attached, it should say was adopted. It says as adopted.
Do you have any problem with making that change, Mike?
In the certificate?
Well, so is in the certificate, forget. All right.
As long as it doesn't change the legal meaning of anything, I'll go with that.
Okay, anything else? All right, Mary Ann?
Ms. Fresca?
Aye.
Dr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Moon?
Aye.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Aye.
Mr. Cindy?
Aye. All right, the next one is, on our item is facilities rental agreement.
No comment. We're still working on that. That will probably take a back seat with some of the other things we have coming up here with the budget development, financial meetings. So the goal would be to try to get that wrapped up before the end of the year so that we can approve it over the summer and implement it before August 1st.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is policies. We have one for first reading, several for recommended adoption, and then we have some pending ones that we're still working on, so, Kevin, you want to talk about?
First reading, 6:240 field trips. This has been a big discussion with the board with the band first coming forward in the August, and then we had Mr. Holt's trip that he brought forward, the Costa Rica. So we had our attorney draft up a board policy. This is a first reading. Now, you received some extra documents that the board will not take action on. I still need to review these with Pam and the building administration. These are just some general administrative procedures and permission forms that we had our attorney draft up to make sure we're all in compliance and we're protecting ourselves in regards to liability and proper notification. On the first read with 6:240, I did identify a few areas that still need to be addressed. There's one correction in the first paragraph. All field trips must have the superintendent or designee's prior approval. That will match with the rest of the policy that will say all field trips must have the principal's or designee's prior approval. And then we're going to also go back to our current policy. I think we should have something mentioned in this policy that talks about free and reduced lunch for curriculum-based field trips, one-day field trips. And that should be in that third paragraph where the fees and lodging and cost of field trips are. In our previous policy, we did have something that offset that students that were a free and reduced lunch and it being a required field trip for a class. The district assumed responsibility for that. So the policy council will look at that language as well in January. But this is a first read, and I need the board just to direct their attention to the first page of the 6:240.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. And it may be inferred, and maybe I'm missing it, but would it be wise to include in section 11 about the teacher conducting the tour?
Where you at, Dan?
Page, well, there's no page number. It's number 11 of the administrative procedures for educational tours, general conditions for educational tours.
There's AP 1, 2, and 3. He's
Oh.
on the second page of AP 3.
AP3.
And you're saying what?
Should we explicitly note that the supervisory teacher must travel with the students?
These are educational tours, which would be, so what do you mean by the supervisory teacher travel with the students?
Well, there was some question as to whether on a tour that occurred within the year, whether the teacher had to travel with the students on the way back.
You mean like on the same flight?
Yeah,
or same-
right. I mean, do we have to be explicit as far as the care and?
I think we got to be cautious when we start stepping into the educational tours. You'll notice these are, once again, these are administrative procedures, but the way I had Todd kind of draft this up, the educational tours would be those trips that are the non-school related. That would be more like the Costa Rica trip, a trip to Spain, maybe for a world language over the summer.
Right.
So I think we need to watch how much we want to put out there, because we're going to be also distributing the memo that we distributed to the Costa Rica trip that says this is not our trip and this is not any responsibility of the district. So that might be a requirement for some of the travel agent providers. I'm not saying I don't agree with you, but a lot of these teachers schedule these trips through a third-party provider who sets up these educational tours.
Well, in this instance, the teacher had family there and expressed an interest in wanting to stay over. And I think that the expectation among the students at RB in traveling with them is that they would have the supervision and chaperone with them the entire time. At least as a parent, I felt this way. So,
It's definitely something we can make note
Yeah.
of, Dan, and.
yeah, I don't
put
know
in
if it
there.
has to be explicit, because I see that in 11 that at least it's inferred.
Well, we'll look at that. Any other thing on field trips? This is our first read on it. Okay,
A comment, so you are giving us 3 examples of the
These really
the
shouldn't have.
account procedures, right?
Yeah, they really shouldn't even have been in there, because those are more or less my responsibility to drafting up the day-to-day operations of how we want to implement checks and balances with these protocols. I just included all of them because we worked on them as a policy council. But the main thing the board needs to approve is the first page, the 6:240, the field trip tours. That will be the policy.
okay. All right, anything else? Okay, then I'm gonna move into a section of policies that we want to have recommended for adoption. First one is policy 2:250, access to district public records. This comes from our press packet 77.
Press packet 77, which you received in November as a first read overall for the whole packet. The policy council did not have time to complete the entire packet, and there were 3 policies identified as policies that should be approved as soon as possible, one of them being 2:250. So we reviewed it, the policy council and myself felt that there were no additional changes or corrections based off of what was given to us by press packet in the IASB.
And there's another one, there's 2 more from press packet, I'm gonna skip around. Home and hospital instructions, policy 6:150. That was from our press packet 2. And that is passed the FMLA. There was another one that the policy committee reviewed and saw no issues with this policy. Am I right, Tim?
Yes.
And then the other one on press packet 77 is
7:305.
7:305. And that is student athlete concussions and head injuries. Okay. Any questions on those 3 from press packet 77? Okay.
We need to go to, no questions, then we need to look at 4:20. This one we've spent some time on now, the board's been aware of this, so there'd be 2 things that you would be adopting tonight. One is to remove 4:12, which is the operating fund balance policy, previously approved September 9th, 2008. We combined that language into 4:20, that more or less says that the Board of Education and the administration will maintain a working cash overall fund balance of 20%.
I have a question, that one. It says, in each fund, is it necessary that it be in each fund?
Cumulative
Total
total.
will be measured
Says
against the
cumulative
cumulative total, so the overall total.
Yeah, but in the second paragraph, school district seeks to maintain year-end fund balances no less than 20% of the annual expenditures in each fund. Can one fund be 18 and another fund be, 22?
It could be that as long as the cumulative is 20%.
Right, but that's not what it's reading.
We seek to go 20% in
That's a
all.
goal.
Yeah.
We don't always make the goal.
Right.
Based on a financial consequence that's unpredictable.
Well, the next line, if the balance percentage falls below, so if one account is below but the others are all above, are we going to have this plan, or are we just gonna?
So for example, if the transportation budget goes to 18% at the end of the year,
Yeah,
we can have a plan to fund it a little bit more so that hopefully at the end of the next year, it'll be at the 20% target.
We could resolve your question for the last sentence if we change the word "the" to That's
To
what
Change the what?
The word "if," instead of "if the," I'd say "if
But I thought the overall goal is at the end of the year, June 30th, we have a working cash fund balance cumulative total of 20%.
Doesn't say.
We have
that.
operating
Operational
funds.
fund balance.
Balance of 20%.
Then you could just add the word cumulative. If the
Yeah,
cumulative fund.
that's what you want to say.
that-
So what you're saying, John, is the school district in second paragraph seeks to maintain cumulative year-end fund balance is no less than 20%.
Well, no, I'm just
No.
saying each individual fund could be 20%, and then the cumulative, if it falls below that, we're gonna adopt our financial
Right.
plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because part of the
good
financial
idea.
plan is what we're working on after January 1st. It's the budget building process and the cost reduction process or expenditure reduction process.
okay.
So, I mean, that's something that's why we talked about putting in that last sentence annually to achieve a desired level, because it's not something you can automatically go into an emergency adoption plan. You'd have to say, hey, next year we know we overspent, plus our revenues, our expenditures are gonna be increasing by this percentage, so what is our financial plan? That's what we're gonna be working on the next several months, and how we're gonna cut $1.5 to $2 million. That's kind of our financial plan, to maintain that 20% fund balance.
All right, so the change we want to make is if the cumulative fund balance percentage falls below the minimum percentage, am I right? Everybody comfortable with that? Okay?
In that last sentence?
Yeah, that last sentence.
Okay.
So it goes right there, if the cumulative.
Okay.
All right, anything else? And then
So
our
412 is going out,
412 is gone.
and 420 is being recommended with the one-word change.
Correct.
Approved tonight.
Yes.
So when we read the motion, we shouldn't approve 412. We should,
Delete.
We should approve to remove it.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, the next one, 5:185, we need to discuss this a little bit. We need to update our policy to align with current federal laws, and there's some things that need to be tweaked and updated. And we spent a lot of time on this policy, our attorneys helped draft this policy. There is one question in regards to language, I think it's on page 5.
Yep.
And that is under the,
Which one are we? Because we jumped on.
FMLA,
Section
FMLA?
4.
Okay.
page 5.
bottom amount of leave.
Mhm.
So the policy council had a little question on this. We called Bill Percorny at our attorney's office. He said we can run it one of two ways. Most organizations do run it with a rolling calendar. So basically, it sets up that an employee can only take an FMLA once every 12 months. But the language that you see in front of you is the language from our previous board policy, which says that more or less an employee can take an FMLA once from September 1st through August 30th, August 31st. Now, where that could become somewhat a conflict is technically under the way this policy reads, a person could take an FMLA in March till the end of the school year, use up that 12 weeks, and then on September 1st, apply for another FMLA, because under the wording of this policy, that would be inside the year that was described in a previous policy. Or more commonly, it's saw as 12 months from your last date of your FMLA, kind of like a rolling calendar or a rolling countdown clock. Now, after reviewing this a little bit and discussions with Bill, if the board wanted to change the verbiage on this policy, we would need to give the employee 60 days notice. During that 60 days, if an employee applied for an FMLA, we would have to allow them to use whichever scenario provided them the best outcome, since we're changing it mid-year. And I have been in conversation in good faith with the union about this to make sure they understand these changes, and we want to make sure we both agreed, Mr. Monty and myself, that we wanted to make sure we're aligning to what's best practice and what also is aligning with the law. And we were having some issues clarifying that. So my recommendation to the board tonight would be, let's sit on 5:185 for one more month. We could look at it in the first board action meeting in January, to give the union and myself a little more time to talk about the language and to talk about how we would provide that 60-day notice to the staff to make sure everybody's aware of the policy change and what's being implemented, so that the employees don't feel caught off guard. That's my recommendation. However, I work for the board, so.
We received a 5/185 in our board packet, and we received an email yesterday with a 5/185. Which document is more correct?
The email you received yesterday had some additional edits.
This
So-
one can't, the one that's here can't be adopted. One of the edits wasn't made and it's completely wrong, it says here.
So you're gonna get us, the policy will go back and get us something clean?
Yeah, well, I think we should first look at this in January.
Okay.
Okay?
We spent a lot of time on this at Policy Council. It's been on, you've had it since November, but I think it's better off if we give myself and the RBEA some time to make sure everybody's clear on the language and to talk about how we can communicate this to all the employees.
And you're gonna review the close to final draft with them again before bringing it to us?
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so that is all we're bringing for you. The other ones are pending, we're still working on them.
I just have one question on the FMLA. In this, do we also cover intermittent?
Yes.
Okay.
It's up to you.
And is that kind of embedded in there? It's not enough, it's
It's-
just understood?
If you want to add a break, I'll show you where it says it.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion, and just remember that we are deleting 4:12
Yeah.
from the board policy. So Tim, you want to do that?
Resolved, the Board of Education Township High School District 2A, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the following changes to board policy. 2250, access to district public records. 420, fund balances. 6150, home and hospice instruction. 7305, student athletic concussion and head injuries. In addition, the deletion of policy 412, which I think had a different title, didn't it?
Operating fund balance.
Operating fund balance, as presented in December 13th, 2011 board agenda packet.
So I have a second? Second by Mike Welch. Any discussion?
My question that I usually have at this point in the meeting is, how soon will this appear in our policy manual on the website?
We're in the process of identifying that. That is not, that's one of those limitations. The press packet prefers that we send in all of our changes with the press packets as we do them, so that's every 2-3 months. Now, what we're working on installing over winter break is Adobe Professional, so that we can maybe have some flexibility when we approve a packet or approve a specific policy, we can update that specific policy on the web page itself.
Okay.
And not have to wait for the new CD with all the updates and the corrections.
You have Adobe Professional on your machines. You have that capability to do that.
We have the license here, it's not on our machines just yet. But we have 100 licenses on site that Tech's gonna be installing over winter break and doing some training. It's not a very, I think he said he's used it about 5 times. It's not very well, it's not used a lot, I should say.
When I worked with Doreen, she had it, and that's what we did.
Okay,
She could swap out pages for corrected pages and
in the library.
on the machine in the library. yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Mary Ann?
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Goodchick?
Yes.
Mr. Escoff? Yes. Mr. Cindy?
Yes. All right, the next item on the agenda is Aramark amendment. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, give me 1 second. What you have in your packet is the amendment to the Aramark contract, just to formalize the reduction of the $41,000 and discussing the language of the Aramark contract. As you can see, there needs to be some minor changes to it. We're waiting for Aramark's legal office to update Mr. Cindy's name. But other than that, the facilities committee had met with both the regional manager, or the district manager for Aramark, as well as our manager, and we're in support of the amendment.
Okay.
So more or less, I just want to make sure the board's aware of it, so when we get the corrected copy, Mr. Cindy can sign it, we can get it off to Aramark.
Do I have a motion?
John?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the amendment to the Aramark Agreement as presented in the December 13, 2011 Board Agenda Packet.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John King. Any other discussion? Mary Ann?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Goodchick?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Syming?
Yes.